Sometimes we've actually celebrated lots of Valentine's Day depending on where we are in the world. When we realize that there's a Valentine's Day happening, a lot of times we'll try and do something, go out for dinner.
Like Western Valentine's Day,
yeah,
and perhaps other cultures.
Exactly, yeah. We don't usually go like all out, but we usually do something.
Well, because I have a very particular diet, because I'm vegan, now it's a little bit special to go out to a restaurant that serves nice vegan food.
That's true.
But we also used to do our own food as well. So we would do like special meals at home that we set up for each other in order to celebrate.
Josh makes amazing crepes, but we haven't figured out how to make them vegan yet, which is the worst part about him going vegan, because his crepes are amazing.
Well, we haven't figured out how to do the Bavarian cream in a vegan style.
What other kind of crepes are there?
Crepes without cream, not crepes.
Exactly.
They're not Valentine crepes anyway.
That's right.
Oh yeah, we could talk about this forever.
It is kind of a long story. It's a fairly unique story. It's another one of those like guy meets girl, girl hits guy over the head, drags him back home sort of thing. You know, no, actually, it wasn't like that at all. I was in Costa Rica. I was working in a family business. It was a business that was just a very, very, very small bed and breakfast, so we had guests come in all the time. And one day, this beautiful girl showed up. And of course, I couldn't leave her alone, and she was all like, stay away from me, stay away from me, stay away from me. And after years and years of bugging her, she's like, okay, finally, I guess we could probably do something.
Okay, let me tell the story from my perspective. So I moved down to Costa Rica many years ago to teach English in a little village there. And while I was there, my best friend came and visited me. I was like, if you're here, we have to go to the beach together. I haven't been to any great beach vacation places yet because I've been waiting for a friend. So we decided to go to this little village on a beach called Montezuma, and we found this cute bed and breakfast with a butterfly garden, and we stayed there. And it just so happened it also had a very charming hotel owner who was really charming, who I felt an immediate connection to. We ended up, my first or second day there, my friend was super tired because we had done these hikes to waterfalls and all this stuff. So she went to bed early. I was still wide awake. And Josh and I ended up sitting in the lobby talking till late at night. And I remember telling my best friend the next day, like, this is the craziest thing. I felt like manipulated, but in a good way. Like, I don't even know, like, I shared my whole life story with this stranger, and I don't even know, it was just because he was such a good listener. So we did have this immediate connection.
I believe we also might have played a game of cards or two.
We did. We played some,
She's very competitive, so I decided to just go ahead and keep letting her win. And she felt free to talk about her entire life, so that worked out really well for me.
We had a lot of fun. We had this immediate connection, but I had a lot of strong beliefs about the kind of person I wanted to date, including I have a faith, I'm a Christian. I wasn't sure what his faith was or anything. I mean, we'd only just met, and I just kind of assumed that all of the complicated standards I had would probably mean that any just random stranger I met at a hotel would probably not meet that. But we did share contact information. We started talking on the phone a bunch. And then my sister came and visited me, and I was like, so we could go to the beach. I know this guy who might give us cheap hotel rooms. So we saw each other again, started having a lot more conversations about, like, could this be a thing? And me starting to share, like, well, I need to know a lot about your faith, and these are things that I want in a partner. I'm just really serious when I do dating. Like, I was like, I don't date for fun. I only date for the purpose of seeing if if there's a future for, like, marriage. And I was like, so it'll be really intense if you want to date me, basically, because even before we start dating, I'm going to be asking you all these really intense questions. And he wasn't scared off by that and really engaged, and it was really exciting, and yeah, that's how we started. We didn't get married for another 6 years. It took me a while to really trust that it was the right thing. But
I had to lose a lot of games of cards before she would even consider taking it to the next level. And one of the things I learned is that you have to have an infinite amount of patience for losing at her favorite game in order to keep the conversation going. Now, one of the things I was really quite surprised at was, at the time, it was a little bit more difficult for me to have conversations by phone because there weren't very good cell phone tower situations set up in the parts I was in Costa Rica. So we had to use the phone that was part of the business phone, and I was just really surprised that I would end up, after all the business stuff was done over the end of the day, that I would grab the phone and end up talking to her for like sometimes even 6, 7, 8, 9 hours at a time.
Yeah.
So that capacity for conversation and just being able to share what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, I think it was something that was really both important and really attractive for both of us.
Yeah. And just again, that Josh wasn't scared off by how like intense I was, all my big emotions, because I'm just a really emotional person. All of those things just made me more and more interested in him. Yeah, and I've really been grateful that I ended up with a partner that I feel so safe with emotionally, and that I can share all the complicated, messy parts of life. And we really built that right from the beginning.
Yeah.
One of the big hurdles was just kind of figuring out how we would end up like doing life together, living together long term, because although I met Josh in Costa Rica, I moved back to the States shortly after we started dating, and I didn't want to work in the small family business in Costa Rica for the rest of my life. And Josh didn't either. That wasn't his life goal. I mean, he wanted to do other things with his life. He'd been there for 10 years already and had always thought there would be another chapter of life, but it was really hard to figure out how to make that next chapter happen and how to move away from the family business in a way that wouldn't just be, like...
Still feel like I was fulfilling my responsibilities, right? So I had responsibilities that I had to, fulfill, but then I also had new responsibilities, right? Because as someone who's entering into like a lifelong partnership, even though we were convinced that we were going to live fast and die young, so it'd probably only be for a couple of months anyway.
Whatever.
No, we were very much focused on long term, right? And so being committed for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And so really working on how to take on new responsibilities as well without feeling like you had to abandon your old ones, and still maintain strong relationships with your family and your community, because of course you don't want to break all of your ties, right? And so it was a balancing act for sure.
Yeah, and actually we broke up at one point. Our first year we were together, at the end of about a year, we broke up. I had moved back to the States. We were trying to figure out the long distance relationship thing. Josh was having just so much of his energy that he was having to throw it into making the family business work that I wasn't sure that he really had the space to be able to be fully present to a long distance relationship. And then there was just other issues that we needed to work through on our own.
I also had to be honest that, at the time I was already married to someone else. The business. I mean, I was already married to the business. I was already married to the business, not for someone else. So I also had to be honest with what I could really give. And when we both realized at that time that there just wasn't enough space to honor everything, that we had to create space for it.
Yeah.
Right? And so.
But it was a really beautiful breakup. It felt like a really honoring of one another, really being honest about what we needed and what we thought we had or did not have to offer. And as a result, I think it just really provided the space so that we were able to come back together again. It wasn't a burn the bridges, leave with really bad feelings. I remember after that breakup just thinking, like, that was the best breakup I've ever had. Like, I feel like I graduated to a new level of adult. Like, because we did that so well.
She got to do that at least 4 or 5 more times. It was such a good breakup. She's like, I should do this every day.
But really, I think, it was a really good opportunity. And if you... Exactly, yeah.
Well, it did maintain, the friendship, right? So even though we had to have some space in order to make that really clear that it was separate, it did honor the friendship as well. So then you were still really able to do that. Well, let's just be friends, and then make that really based in friendship as opposed to just something you say.
Although we took 2 or 3 months of not talking to each other in order to really make that transition happen, because we felt like, especially because we were long distance, I guess, it felt like if you just tried to say like, oh, now we're just friends but we're still talking all the time, that would really muddy that and be really difficult for us. So we were really intentional. This is not because we're angry with one another, we really care about each other still, but because there's still feelings there and we're trying to like make it clear in both of our hearts and minds that we're stepping away from that romantic side, we took a couple months of saying we're not going to contact. We'll get back in contact in a few months, and then we can kind of see what restarting a friendship looks like. And I highly suggest anybody who breaks up to do that, because it's easy to say, oh, we're just going to be friends now, but it's just so easily you hurt feelings or you get your emotions confused.
I thought she was going to say she recommends breaking up at least once before you get married. No, maybe not. Maybe not.
I do recommend you have conflict before you get married, and that you see how you work through it, because that I think it's so important that you have really honest conflict, that you work through it, that you really know that you have the safety and communication skills to be able to do that well. And in our case, a breakup was one of those times where we really saw that, where you kind of almost went to the extreme of how a conflict can end up saying like, oh, we can't do this relationship right now. But it was done in a really beautiful way, and it definitely, I think, confirmed to both of us like we could do this if things changed, we could, because we were able to manage that.
Yeah, once we got through that one conflict on March 23rd, 2014, ever since then, we got that out of the way. We're like, done, no more conflict. No, I think we have conflict. Didn't we have 2 this morning? We have conflict.
We have a lot of conflict.
But we also are able to work through that, right? Which is really important, because you can't assume that once you get into a lifelong commitment to someone that then everything's just going to work out. Right?
Yeah. I think one of Josh's love language is service. Like, caring for the other person in like tangible ways of helping them, I think. Like washing the dishes, making meals, helping clean up. I mean, just some of those, everyday mundane things. Like, that's really how I think that's true for anybody in a partnership. Ultimately, you're going to have to serve them, and that's one of the ways you show them that you love them. I think maybe that's one of the ways that Josh was really loved. That and physical touch, I guess.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's also really important is that while there are different love languages, not everybody receives the languages in the same way. That's why Google Translate is so important. We just kind of leave the translator in between the two of us so that we're like, oh, I'm taking care of you right now.
If only, huh?
Right, if only, right. So a lot of positive affirmation, I think, is a really important style for Pauline in order to hear love language. And so I am kind of like grumpy and crotchety, and so my love language is like making sarcastic remarks. And I have to remember to be like, oh, positive sarcasm. And that's what you'll hear, right? So I try as much as I can, but it's also good to understand how you approach that differently. And if somebody's really trying to express their love language, that you're able to hear it, even if it isn't yours.
Yeah. My other love language is gifts. Definitely. I love giving and receiving gifts.
It's true.
Find a Josh.
I would say don't be afraid to be honest. Right? Like, that's hard, and it doesn't necessarily get easier, but if you're not afraid, right, then that will allow you to go ahead and work through those things and feel safe at the end of it.
Right. Find somebody that you feel safe being honest with, but then push yourself to keep being honest. Because just because they're a safe person doesn't mean that you will feel like it's easy to do it. You still have to push yourself to do it. There'll still be a little fear if it's a really hard thing that you're admitting or acknowledging some ugliness in yourself. But it's really important that you do that, for sure.
And then lie every day.
Whatever.
I love it. No, actually, no, it's really, really, really important to be
honest.
Not only honest, but just not being afraid to be honest.
Yeah.
So if you've got something that's really weighing on you or something that's difficult to share, that you find the safe spaces to be able to do so.
I would also say, when I was thinking about marriage, I was always a little unsure of if I wanted marriage. I was just really worried about being miserable in a marriage. Like I was scared to end up with the wrong person and be miserable for the rest of my life. And the joke I've told people after getting married, but it's really kind of true, is that I spent so much time being worried that the other person was going to make me miserable and not enough time thinking about how miserable I could make another person. And that like, it's really like in marriage, I spend a lot more time realizing my faults and how I need to grow and love better than I do thinking about the problems that Josh has as a partner. Partly that's because I got a great partner, but also I think it's just really important to realize you have to do a lot of work to grow as a partner and be the partner you want to have.
And lots of oat milk lattes. Lots of oat milk lattes.
All right, any words for the singles, babe?
Any words for the singles? Oh, well, my phone number is 555. No, I'm just kidding. No. I think what I would say is kind of compared to what Pauline says is that when you get in a relationship, one thing that will happen is that you start realizing what you're bringing to the relationship that isn't maybe the best, right? So I think it's really important for you to find good ways to bring your best self to life. So even though not every day is going to be a great day, like you're going to have good days and bad days, you're going to have a lot of things that you struggle with, to find those things that allow you to really bring your best self to the day and the person that you're with. And that will really make the ups and downs so much more joyful.
Yeah. I think my word for the singles is, for one, embrace where you're at. Like, there's so much joy and goodness in being single. I was single into my 30s, and I do not regret it. It was wonderful. I'm also so glad I didn't miss the opportunity to be with Josh because I was enjoying my singleness so much. And I think a lot of times it's about finding the balance where you're not desperate to be with somebody. If you're just looking for anybody so that you're not single, that's not a good place to be, and you're going to end up with the wrong people for the wrong reasons, or even the right person for the wrong reasons, and that can almost be worse because you could really destroy a relationship because you're desperate and you're trying to make them fulfill everything that's broken in you, as opposed to bringing your whole self to another whole person. But also not to be like terrified of commitment and being in a marriage, because I am so grateful for the marriage that I have. I believe in marriage. I believe in the good that partnership is and the way it can draw out the best in you and also help you realize the flaws in yourself and in a safe place where you can learn and grow. And I hope if you find it, you don't turn it down, I guess.